I now take immense pleasure in introducing today's speaker. Mrs. Geeta Ghagliawar is a leading sports nutritionist with a PG Diploma International Olympic Committee. She is a registered dietitian, certified diabetics educator, and a university first ranker and a gold medalist. She is a noted speaker and columnist with vast experience of mentoring national and international and novice athletes by offering holistic sports nutrition coaching. Mrs. Geeta is an advisor to FSSAI, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India, working group on use of supplements for sports person. Dear participants, get a chance to learn from Geeta, who will reveal some interesting facts and experiences on controlled diets and explore the needs for wellness. Over to you, Geeta. Geeta, can you please unmute yourself?
Am I audible now?
Yes, it's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Wilma. And I thanks Mr. Sen for having me over to do this webinar and giving me this opportunity to mentor these young budding hospitality professionals. Welcome everybody, and I hope this will be an informative session for you. Unfortunately, I may not be able to view you on the screen as I present. So, but if you have any questions related to the presentation, I would request you have that shared with Wilma so that we can take these questions once we have this session over. And if there is anything to be communicated, Wilma, you will pause me.
Yes, Geeta, I will.
Okay,
thank you.
Great.
Geeta, I understand your voice is little breaking up.
Is it? Okay, give me one moment.
Yes, okay.
I am on Wi-Fi.
All right, Geeta, go ahead, no issues.
Okay, all right. Yeah, in case there's a disturbance or if there's any hassle, do sound me off, so otherwise I will not get to know.
Yeah, good to go. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Wilma. And thank you also for the lovely introduction. And I think we've fallen behind schedule, and apologies for that. So let us commence. So just to give you an overview of what we will be discussing, the common challenges we have had in the lockdown period. I think pandemic is a very rare event that one can experience, and I think it's been a learning experience for all of us. So what is going on with our food habits, and being homebound, there's definitely been upheaval in the habits. So we look at what could be the good choices of what we eat and what we can consume as drinks. What about, especially, I know that Ami Institute also has a lot of girls, so we will be focusing on adolescent and girls' health. Definitely immunity and what can you do and not do in terms to COVID, and how can you manage weight if you are not exercising and spending time on fitness. How can you kind of use food in order to help you manage your weight, and definitely your lifestyle, which will kind of keep your optimal immunity and definitely keep your emotional well-being in mind. Starting from our first point here, there has been an erratic routine, and there's obviously a very easy option to reach out to fast food, which is obviously very convenient. So a Maggie, eating a cup of bowl of Maggie probably is far more easier than cooking a meal from scratch. So a lot of us may resort to these kind of easier options, skipping meals, not eating on time, not able to have a routine or an exercise schedule, definitely not able to step out into the sun or into daylight. Many of us are homebound. Either there has been a lockdown, or just due to the fear of COVID, we are not able to step out. I'm sure a lot of individuals do have smoking habits or consume occasional alcohol, or indulge in excessive coffee, and definitely there's been stress and anxiety. There have been several challenges in the pandemic time. So what could be our main goals to consuming normal food, there is no need to deviate from our regular routine, but just to be able to change wee bit or tweak our carbohydrates, that is our rice, roti, or the dals that we eat, the kind of oil that we use at home itself can make a vast difference. And definitely we want to look at food in order to take care of the immunity, in order to support our well-being, and definitely to be able to take care of the nutrients which mainly come from food. So, and that again has to be, when we do detailed dietary counseling, that these are several aspects we look into, or the parameters, being what is the age, the gender, is it a boy or a girl? What are the other body fat composition parameters? Is there a very high amount of fat? Is the person overweight? What is the type of food we eat, the quality, quantity? What is the timing of these meals? So that's the kind of detailed work we would do. But of course, here, given the constraint of the time, we'll be looking at it in a very brief manner. So everybody does look at staple foods, what is eaten in our homes, and that being your rice, roti. And of course, I'm sure there are a lot of North Indian students in the college. So aloo or potatoes are quite popular. I know a lot of our North Indian friends who go without not eating potato in any single meal, So that's also a means of carbohydrate. And there are also some form of carbohydrates that come from milk, fruits, and definitely the use of sugars. So what you really need to focus here is, you have to ensure that half your food comes from any kind of unrefined grains, being oats, barley, brown rice, hand-pounded rice, millets like ragi, bajra, jowar. For the reason that these are more filling, and white rice gets digested very fast. I think you kids will be aware, if you ate a Maggi, in 1 hour's time you are hungry again. So the whole idea is to be able to delay these hunger symptoms, because you may also tend to eat because of boredom. So you have not just B vitamins, which are very important for energy and immunity, but you also have a high fiber intake through grains, and that can kind of, when you eat in a balanced meal, along with protein and other things which we'll see in the coming slides, it kind of helps you feel fuller, have a satiety, and that's the reason you may tend to eat at stipulated timing instead of unnecessary grazing or frequent snacking. So I'm sure quite a few of you do love white bread. So is pasta, which is quite refined. And what about cornflakes? Very popular and very easy. But these are very fast absorbing, so they digest very fast. They're very high glycemic index, what we call GI. So they kind of make you feel hungry very soon. So and not to mention, most of these packaged processed foods have very high amount of sugar to make them tasty. So you may want to just use it occasionally for an emergency when you are not, having enough supplies at home. And of course, wheat has been a part of our diet. Roti, chapatis. Unless and until you have any health concerns with wheat, which sometimes is a genetic disposition for Indians, similar with milk like lactose, there is no need to avoid wheat. You can definitely use that. So the biggest challenge here is sugar. And we will see why sugar can be really bad. So sugar has become a part of our diets, and there are many kinds of sweeteners. So sugar being quite popular. So that's the refined sugar, which is nothing but the sucrose, or what comes from the sugar cane. Then you have the unrefined version, which is the brown sugar. The traditional form of sweetener, which was jaggery, again honey, which is again natural. However, the calorie difference between each of these is very marginal, though jaggery has more iron content because it's processed in iron skillets, whereas honey is again very natural and has health or immune boosting properties. But what happens to using just a refined sugar? So the challenge here is that it has similar pathways for absorption. So it will hinder or it will prevent the absorption of vitamin C, definitely vitamin D, and it will make sure that the body will throw out or excrete or get rid of more calcium, magnesium, and certain microminerals like chromium. And not to mention the effect it has on the brain, because the sugar has a reward system similar to that of cocaine, which is a drug. So it keeps you going back and craving for more sugar, because every time you eat a sugar or sugary food, it kind of makes you kind of feel elated. So the brain kind of starts getting addicted to this feeling, and that's one of the reasons that certain sugary foods are quite rewarding, and for that reason it is very difficult to wean off or to eradicate from the diet. So it's best to moderate and avoid whenever possible. And sugar taken for athletes, for adolescents, in the right quantity, in the right timing, can be very beneficial. So you have to see, is it an athlete, somebody who's indulging in physical fitness? Is it a training time when you need a stipulated concoction of a certain quantity of sugar that will be used? Or is it going to be immediately after training when, sugar taken when the liver glycogen is very low or glycogen synthase enzyme is very high? Sugar will not be converted, to fat in the body, but sugar goes into becoming glycogen itself. So it depends as to when and why the sugar is taken, and there are several ways to use it very judiciously for your benefits. Now, the most important thing here is protein. So a lot of Indians oversee protein, and what we also definitely not understand is good quality protein is needed for antibodies. Now, with COVID, antibodies is very important because they protect you from infection. So if you do not plan to eat adequate protein in all your meals, which I think Indians already have the challenge, it can be quite a problem. So you have to ensure that, we'll see in the next slide what could be the protein options. So you have to ensure that you are eating some protein in all meals, and you have to ensure that they're not just you eat 2 eggs in breakfast. So anda kha liya to you don't need anything else. So, or chalo hafte mein 2 baar dal kha liya. We know a lot of people who talk like that. So nahi dal to there's only it's made for lunch or it's made twice a week. So you have to ensure that proteins are available in all meals, and definitely about 20 or even 25 grams possible. And typically non-vegetarian meals have higher protein. It's easy to get proteins in non-vegetarian choices. So a lot of people also, I think, do not or rather understand that carbohydrates also have proteins very marginally, and protein foods also have carbohydrates. So like a glass of milk may give you protein, so which is highlighted individually in every box. But sometimes they also give you carbohydrates, which I talked about in the earlier slide, like milk, sugar is lactose. So milk and curd definitely has carbohydrates. Now, whereas foods like eggs, chicken, be it any other non-vegetarian fish, they have predominantly more protein and they do not have carbohydrates in them. And definitely a whey protein supplement, which is purely, mostly, a protein source. Now, in the vegetarians, there is definitely a challenge to get higher quality or higher quantity of proteins, because they also contain large amounts of carbohydrates. And there's always a challenge. Somebody probably can very easily eat about a big fillet or a big chicken breast of, it could be a steak or kebabs. Whereas in vegetarians, if you need to really get larger amounts of protein of 20-25 grams, it's kind of very challenging to eat about 300-400 grams, which is almost like close to quarter kg or half kg of a cooked dal. So they have slightly lower quality of proteins because they lack methionine. One of those, like a brick, like a hole in the wall. One piece of the wall is missing and the brick is lost. So you need to eat them in combination. So like idli, dosa, dal, chawal, rajma roti. So basically, when you eat them together, there is better quality protein. And they also have carbohydrates I talked about, and definitely they have very high amount of fiber, which makes you feel gassy. So it's very challenging if you are eating pulses with the skin in one go. So you have to ensure that it's spread across in smaller portions across the meals, because then too much fiber can also make you feel uncomfortable and can make you constipated if you do not have enough water. So there are a lot of anti-nutritional properties again, like your phytates or phytic acids. So it's better if you soak them or sprout them, so then they are, and also remember to rinse the pulses as you soak your chana, rajma. Keep changing the water frequently, so that way you can get rid of all the unfavorable nutrients. So the absorption of calcium, magnesium and iron improves. Now, tofu and soya products, these are very high in vegetarian forms of proteins, and also better because they are defatted. So soya is actually very high in fat. Soya beans on itself may not be highly recommended because it has so much fat and other anti-nutritional property. But processed soya, like those nuggets, soya nuggets, soya granules, they're far more better, lesser anti-nutritional properties. So, but however, the males have testosterone as their hormone. So, excessive indulgence in soya, if you're vegetarian, can be not very beneficial. So, just limit or moderate the amount of portions that you have from soya, especially if you're a male, and because they contain plant estrogen or phytoestrogens. Nuts and seeds. Some nuts like peanuts are cheaper. So seeds like watermelon seeds, pumpkin seeds, watermelon. What else? Pumpkin, watermelon, and these kind of seeds are also quite economical and reasonable to use, and they have certain, vitamins, even vitamin E, omega-3. So they're cheaper and definitely value for money. And whatever is easy, accessible, can add good quality proteins also in your snacks. So if you use milk, ensure you have them low fat or skim that can help you keep your weight low. And red meat's a very high amount of saturated fat, so that's the reason we say eat less of them. So now what happens with fats is they have a lot of calories. They have 9 calories for 1 gram, whereas it's more than twice of that of carbohydrates and proteins. So if you can eat fats in moderation, that's an advantage. Now, the quality of the fat is more important than the quantity itself. So there is also fats available in the egg yolk, in the fish, in the red meat, definitely in the dals and seeds, nuts. So fat also comes from food. So you have to ensure that you don't need more than 2 tablespoons or 30 grams or half the intake of the fat itself should come from added ghee, butter, and oils. You don't need more than that. So that itself is quite a lot, actually. Even 1 teaspoon is about approximately 5 grams. So you already are using 6 grams there. So if you're looking at weight loss, you may obviously want to reduce the fat intake. And or choose fats that come from good sources. So that could be your nut seeds, vegetarian version called the alpha-linolenic acid, like your walnuts or avocados. So cheaper oils will be Indian cold-pressed oil. So like kachi ghani, what you call them colloquially. Mustard oil and till oils, these are better. Rice bran oil is also quite popular these days because it's good for reducing cholesterol. Ghee and butter you can use definitely every day. Ghee has been very traditional in our Indian practice, so about half teaspoon to 1 teaspoon definitely use in your diet. Now, I don't know how many of you use sunflower oil in your homes. Sunflower oil is very high amount of omega-6. And they are that's what leads to a lot of diseases, and they are very pro-inflammation. So avoid that. And junk food, because a man-made trans fats, so like when you deep fry consistently, like you all are going to be hoteliers and in the hospitality industry. I know that as a dietitian and a chef, sometimes we have contradictory outlook to wellness. So, but anybody who pursues culinary, and you want to really make sure that you're not just dishing out very yummy and appetizing meals, but you definitely have to ensure that you are keeping health in mind, because you all are hotel management students, and you have to ensure that food is not just very appetizing and sumptuous, but you definitely have to be able to cater to the health aspect of the client or your guest. So deep frying repeatedly and using the same oil, recycling, so that can break down the fat, and trans fats forms quite unhealthy. Baked goods are your pastry chef is going to be quite annoyed hearing this, I'm sure, from me. But though as much as I love baked goods too, but over the years you kind of wean off and eat lesser and lesser quantity. So who can resist a lovely dark chocolate cake or anything made with dark chocolate? So, but baked goods have the highest amount of trans fats, because whenever butter is subject to very high temperature, it changes its structure. So this trans fats is what is bad, and it causes inflammation, leads to a lot of diseases. So this can be just restricted. So you don't, for a 2000 calorie diet, you don't need more than 2%. So that is 2 grams, and typically in the food label, if it says trans fats free, you definitely want to be careful because it has one serving has less than 0.5 grams of trans fat. So that can kind of repeatedly overdoing foods rich in trans fats can lead to increased bad cholesterol. And later on in life, in your decades, in your 20s, in your 30s, that's where diseases start. But the blocking of the artery walls or the atherosclerosis or plaque formation, what we call, has started very early in life. And it has taken decades for you to kind of start seeing diseases that it's kind of really started very early in life. What about vegetables and fruits? So World Health Organization has also recommended that with COVID, ensure you have very healthy meals. Okay, and the recommendations are definitely you need to eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. Anything that's local, seasonal, easily available. You don't have to be, make it anything fancy. The deeper the color, the more the antioxidants, and those pigments are quite powerful to protect your body. So goes without saying, all these dark green leafy vegetables and a lot of other vegetables which have very high amount of water content are low in calories. And starchy vegetables, as with eating, your rice and roti, if you just, it goes with common sense. So if you eat aloo or, say any other good vegetable, like say beetroot or carrots, you can just reduce the portion of your rice and roti because these vegetables also contain a lot of starch. So it is equivalent to eating rice and roti. So sometimes I know you may have already read or heard fruits. When you eat them, you eat it with meals. Do you eat it after meals or on empty stomach? So one size fits all never works. So you rather have the fruit at any time that's convenient for you than not eat at all. So, but ideally, of course, you may want to eat them as a snack. But again, that really depends. Sometimes we tell diabetics to eat fruits with a meal or including some nuts and seeds because the proteins and fats delay the absorption of the sugars. So it's very contextual and, we cannot generalize. And definitely being indoors, sometimes we forget to drink enough water. Water is extremely important, but drink as much as what makes you feel comfortable. There's no rule to say 8 ounces, 8 glasses. We had certain basic standards which we had, heard over years, but that's not true. And with fruit juices, what happens is if you do not strain and you're having the juice with the fiber, then that kind of can keep you full. But if you discard the fiber and it's just the liquid or the water, so may not be kind of satiating or it will not be wise. Of course, if you add too much sugar, then that beats the purpose again. So whereas green tea, very high in antioxidants, catechins, epi-galactocatechin galates, so these antioxidants are quite powerful. The theoflavins, they kind of boost your immunity and reduce inflammation. So similarly, if you have too much coffee, like I think caffeine recommendations about 400 mg for a day, but a strong cup of coffee itself can give you anywhere between 150 to 200 mg coffee. So similar is with the previous slide when I said eggs. Please do eat the whole eggs because one yolk has 300 mg cholesterol, and the limitation or rather the limit, upper limit to taking the cholesterol itself is 400 mg cholesterol from food. But then again, it depends on you're young, individuals. You can definitely afford to eat 2 whole egg yolks because egg yolk has also got all the nutrients, the omega-3, the vitamin E, the biotin, the B12. So whereas egg white is just 3.5 grams of albumin, it's just protein. So whole eggs are also quite nutritious. And of course, if you have tea with food, they have anti-nutritional property like tannins. So is tamarind, spices, they all have tannins. So small use of it in food is inevitable, but if you have excessive, like taking tea with food can kind of reduce absorption of other important nutrients.
Once it's finished,
now with focus on women's health, with the regular menstruation, there's definitely the higher requirement of iron. For that matter, even boys also have good need of iron, or rather there's a requirement of iron in your diet because of expanding blood volume, the final growth spurt of your adolescence, in that prime puberty about 18, 19 years. So you need a very high amount of absorbable iron. So non-veg gives you iron that can be easily taken up by the body. If you're vegetarian and you get it from your chickpeas like your chana or any dark green leafy vegetables, you have to ensure that you add some kind of vitamin C. It could be a cut tomato, or just squeeze a little lime on the food when you eat. So that way you have better absorption of iron when you're a vegetarian. So girls definitely have requirement of folate. So that is dark green leafy vegetables. B6, B12 predominantly come from non-vegetarian foods. So if you are a vegan and do not take any milk or dairy product, or do not take eggs, then that can be a big hassle, and you may want to take your you may want to do your blood test so that you want to address if you have a deficiency, and then you may want to supplement it either by oral tablets or capsules, and also by injection. So if you do not have adequate of these nutrients, sometimes you'll have iron deficiency, anemia, you're tired. Like sometimes I've had some clients who reached out to me and said, I don't feel like getting up in the morning. I feel very exhausted, and I'm tired. And sometimes these are vegetarian clients. So, not being able to step out, not keeping fit. So obviously the body becomes very sluggish and, slow. So you may want to take care of these foods, which I've just mentioned, like even dates, raisins, figs, whatever is reasonable for you. You can opt for a handful of these every day. And then on an ongoing process, if you can eat some dry fruits and nuts, that can be quite healthy snacking by itself. Calcium, and again, very important because maximum bone formation or ossification occurs within 20 years of age, and which you need for lifelong, and especially if you're a girl, based on your biological cycle of your pregnancy, giving birth. Calcium is highly in need for the formation of the fetus and in the breast milk. So later on in your life, later in your 40s, you may have weaker bones, risk of injury, fractures. So you have to ensure that you definitely have good adequate intake of calcium, and milk. Here is the richest source, or rather it is the richest source of calcium, but the absorption is 30% only because you need a good amount of vitamin D for absorption. So again, calcium metabolism is very complicated. Calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, you need vitamin D. So and you have other several important source of calcium, that being your soya itself, soya, almonds, till, like your sesame seeds, broccoli, calcium. So these almonds, excellent source of calcium. So you can definitely use whatever is available at your homes. And during PMS or your premenstrual, if you have any symptoms of cramping, bloating, mood swings, sometimes just to be able to manage with food itself is very helpful. So magnesium, dark green leafy vegetables, nuts, seeds, the good source of magnesium. Soaked almonds, you can peel them and eat them. They're the excellent source of vitamin E. B6, I've already told you, comes from mainly non-vegetarian food. And omega-3 is a little difficult to get in vegetarian options. So omega-3 is better of the smaller tiny fish like sardines, mackerel, because vegetarian omega conversion in the body is less than 5 to 15%. So it's very poor, and that could be your seeds, chia seeds, and omega-3 avocados, walnuts. Okay, those are vegetarian options. Iodine, very important for thyroid because thyroid hormones control the entire metabolic pathways. So iodized salt is the best way to get iodine. And selenium, you can get them from Brazil nut, but they are imported nuts. They're very expensive. So you could alternatively swap for a little bit of cashew nuts. Chicken and non-vegetarian foods also gives you selenium. Biscuits are very popular in every household. And also in corporate world, from every office to everywhere I've worked, they've always had some biscuits along. So very important to pay attention to the serving size, and you have to be able to restrict yourself to just a few, and otherwise they're quite unhealthy and there's nothing useful coming out of it. Even if a multi-grain, if they market it as multi-grain, they have higher sugar than a regular biscuit. So it's quite shocking. Many of you don't read the food labels. But again, if you take sugarless, you have artificial sweeteners. So understand until you're a diabetic and you may look at trying to eradicate or get rid of the sugar, it may not be very helpful at all. And of course, we've talked of trans fats. Any baked goods have very high trans fats, including. What do you snack when you're at home and you're bored, or you just sometimes don't know what to do or nothing to do, but you have a tendency to eat? So I think roasted snacks, anything which is based out of milk or dairy, if you are a vegetarian, and consume those, buttermilk and milkshakes, smoothies, these are good options. Or you could just swap for a trail, mix a handful of nuts, one handful only, not more. So these are definitely protein choices. So in some way they kind of add more value to you instead of eating junk. So then of course keep the skin on the peanuts. They have resveratrol, the same pigment found in red wine. They add fiber, definitely protein. And the soya, if your boys just moderate roasted soya beans, you get roasted soya. Then you get puffed also, puffed snacks like puffed full makana. These are very low in calorie, puffed corn, puffed jova. So these are definitely healthier options because deep fried foods are very high in calories and trans fats. Now, what about alcohol? So if you consume alcohol, just ensure you have limited serving only. Very important, because excessive alcohol can weaken your immunity. And that is not something that you want to do in COVID. It can lead to inflammation and definitely weight gain. It is very high in calories. Similar, I've already talked of caffeine. How caffeine is a stimulant, central nervous system. It kind of gives you a high and you feel quite excited. But then, of course, the slump as the caffeine levels fall, it can kind of make you feel very sullen or feel very bad. So simple methods of cooking will be definitely the ones that are most sought after from our traditional practices, just using water. So that could be boiling, steaming, and poaching, typically common for eggs. Pressure cooking is very time saving and the best option. Grilling, char-broiled foods, what you call tandoori foods, they're actually very harmful because especially if you make non-veg, they form cancer or cancerous compounds, and they're not advisable. So restrict tandoori or grilling or barbecue foods. If you deep fry, ensure you throw the oil, because then there's a lot of these, those chemicals that break down, peroxides and so many other compounds which are not favorable. So it is best to throw away the oil once you deep fry. Sunflower oil, ironically, is the best oil for deep frying. So is coconut oil. If you want to restrict Teflon, then just using our iron tawa, iron kadai, they are the best ones. And definitely avoid plastic, even if you use microwave. Food grade plastic is commonly available, but use glass, ceramic, which are safer. With regards to COVID, and definitely our traditional, Indian practices have been brought back to the fore again because of the government guidelines itself with Ayush. Many homes, I'm sure you already practice all of these. So going back to using tulsi, boiling tulsi in water, or making a kind of a tea, herbal tea or kada, what they call it. So you can definitely use teas. Teas are excellent for weight loss because they have very marginal amount of caffeine, 25 mg only in a cup. So green tea, black tea have theophlavin, so similar like the catechins of the green tea, very high in antioxidants, so they have no calories, and warm fluids are quite helpful. So again, using ginger, be it fresh, dry, you crush a garlic, keep it for 15 minutes and then you use it. So the sulfur containing allicin is released, so that is antibacterial, so it kind of helps you cope with your immunity and or rather can prevent infections. So using your jeera, coriander, cinnamon, pepper. Pepper is quite popular always. Anytime you have a cold, in South India, rasam and a lot of these pepper dishes are quite popular. So with turmeric, there is a pigment called the yellow pigment, the curcumin. Now, curcumin can get destroyed or will reduce when you cook with it. So you add the haldi after you finish the cooking. Okay, so when you add a little bit of a pinch of pepper, it can help increase the absorption of curcumin in the dermatic. So dark chocolate again is quite very powerful in flavonoids, so good option. Just about 1 or 2 blocks, not the whole chocolate. Vitamin C, like with COVID, a lot of updates which have regularly been published on how vitamin C, for that matter even vitamin D, which I'll just talk in the couple of slides. Vitamin C is very helpful in boosting the immunity, because it can kind of delay or prevent the symptoms, so you recover very fast. So fresh fruits and vegetables is what gives you vitamin C, because vitamin C will get killed if you cook with it, or you extract a juice out of musambi and keep it exposed to light and air. The vitamin C will get killed. So there's no point in just destroying that. So you eat the whole fruit, which will be better for you. Selenium I've already talked of, and similar is zinc. Zinc is, I don't know what the word is in Hindi, but these oysters or mussels what come in a shell, so they are the richest source of zinc. So, and commonly, of course, if you eat a balanced diet, be it nuts, seeds, pulses, so you will get some of these microminerals in your diet. Now, a lot of emphasis on microbiome, good bacteria in your gut, and the gut and brain connection. So fermented foods, India has been very popular with using our own foods. So be it, pickles or curd. Curd is again fermented milk. So in South India, they used to do this overnight rice. You just soak it in water and drink that, which is, I believe, quite popular, sold even in the United States in the supermarkets, bottled for, I'm sure, quite a price. So even fibers that you eat from whole grains, pulses, your vegetables and fruits, these fibers also ferment, and they lead to short-chain fatty acids. They call prebiotics. A probiotic is live, which have the bacteria, and prebiotic is what feeds the gut bacteria. So all these fibers are also good for your health. Something that has been overlooked probably for all of us with this pandemic is the erratic routine. So sleep is definitely one of the challenge areas. So sound sleep, if you sleep well and try and go to bed at the same time and try and wake up at the same time, they really have an impact on the hormones, particularly your ghrelin and leptin. Now leptin is an appetite suppressing hormone. So if you sleep well, and it helps you keep your leptin very high, and that's why you will eat less, so your weight is under control. And definitely in diabetics or those who are overweight, there's better control of your insulin. So it also, of course, not to mention how a good night's rest can make you feel more calmer in your head, more rested, more rejuvenated. So certain protein-rich foods have an influence on dopamine, and the dopamine also influences sleep. So tryptophan comes from all your non-vegetarian options, and like you heard of Thanksgiving in US, so the turkey roast, for that matter, chicken, or even a glass of milk. Even in India, you see any Hindi movie, there will always be either the mother or the wife who's giving a glass of milk being served at that time. So the reason why this was followed was because milk has the amino acid called tryptophan, and tryptophan helps produce a sleep hormone called serotonin. Similarly, melatonin, I will talk in the next slide of how just exposing yourself to sunlight can increase these hormones, the sleep hormones. So sunlight, early morning sun exposure, or even the midday, like the daytime, why you need to be outdoors for some time is because there's an influence on these hormones and you actually sleep better. And some amount of, if you are looking at weight loss and if you do not eat well, you're skipping on your meals, that can also reduce your sleep, because some amount of rice, roti in your dinner can actually help you sleep better. I just talked of how it's important to be able to get sunlight. Just exposing yourself to early morning sun rays can enhance your circadian rhythm, which is basically, how your body can kind of function through the entire day and night routine, So definitely brain chemicals, certain chemicals have an impact because of these sun rays. Helps you lose weight, so sun exposure is a must. Especially with vitamin D. UVB rays are available only between 10 and 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So you need to be there at least 15-20 minutes, either in your balcony or in your terrace if you have access, just to be exposing yourself without sunscreen, on a naked skin, maybe your hands and legs. At least once or twice in a week, it's quite important. because even the best of the food, because vitamin D is very limited in food. You get it from omega-3 or certain fish like your fatty fish like sardines or mackerel and salmon. So the ones, especially the ones you eat with the bones like sardines. So salmon being the most priciest of the fish still gives you very limited amount of vitamin D. Whereas just getting out into the sun for 15-20 minutes, till your skin starts to feel the burning sensation or the twitching, you need to be in the sun till that time. And you are able to get up to 3000 IU, which is quite high. What you may need is 600 to 800 IU. So it's free, and it's just you could be in the sun for 2 to 3 days. As much as we've been hearing about de-stressing, I myself have succumbed to the challenges of having a regular routine. So you definitely have to look at your own practices as to what works for you. Somebody may enjoy music, somebody may enjoy exercise, so you have to figure what may work for you. But unfortunately, these anxiety, continuous stress, as an ongoing process. So the cortisol, which is a stress hormone itself, can bring down your immunity. And that can kind of, again, make you susceptible to infections. So if you can practice yoga, meditation, or I think as young children, or rather adolescents, you have the opportunity to be able to exercise. So focus on some fitness, and there are so many benefits of exercise. It's free and it takes care of your health. And of course, your brain chemicals, endorphins are released. So you kind of feel good when you sweat, and also helps you maintain your weight. So now, if you have the opportunity to do a blood test, it will be advisable to check what your levels of vitamin D are. And whenever you supplement, one caution is vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin, so you have to be able to take some fat in your food, otherwise it will not get absorbed. And vitamin D also gets stored in the liver, so which means that unnecessarily excessive supplementation can be quite toxic. So you may not want to harm yourself. So you need to work with a healthcare professional, either a doctor or a qualified dietitian, to ensure that these values are kind of looked into, and there is a very scientific supplementation protocol followed. Definitely avoid cod liver oil, because cod liver oil is not vitamin D. Though it has small amounts of vitamin D, it has excessive amount of vitamin A. So many people mistake that cod liver oil is, vitamin D. So there is a very clear demarcation of that. So a lot of zinc supplements are available in the market in order to improve immunity. So again, I very recently shared on my social media how excessive zinc can reduce copper in your body. So you have to just be careful with that too. Vitamin C, of course, if you're not able to eat fruits, vegetables, you can take 500 mg any vitamin C, supplement. And vitamin C, what it does is mainly the science or evidences suggest that the symptoms of cold and upper respiratory tract infection reduce. Okay, so otherwise it may not, because COVID is virus, so we don't know how much vitamin C can prevent infection per se, but the science says that it can reduce the symptoms. Definitely, even with COVID, we've had publications which said that people with very high vitamin D and vitamin C recover better even after a COVID infection. So, how does one manage weight? Exercise, predominantly weight bearing, strength training, lunges, body weight exercise, pull-ups, push-ups, skipping, Surya Namaskar. So these are ways of tackling weight bearing exercise. Definitely, high protein diet is very important, particularly if you eat less rice roti. So say for example, you burn about, on an average, 200 calories or 300 calories if you exercise for 1 hour. So if you're not able to eat, exercise, then the best thing to do is just reduce one big bowl of rice, which could be about 250 grams, 300 grams, or 3 fulkas, a small size of, 3 fulkas is approximately 300 calories. So the least you could do is just reduce, your portions of rice and roti, and that way you know that you're eating less. But don't compromise on quality proteins and fruits, vegetables in your diet. Apple cider vinegar has been quite popular. So vinegar helps control, or rather slow down digestion. So when the hunger is delayed, your food intake automatically comes down. So here are some pictures of portions, what your non-veg size of your chicken or fish can be, or carbohydrate, your grain portion, which is raw, or your cooked portion, or sorry, or rather your vegetable portion, how much. So, there is no need to, I've had clients, some of them who weigh their food and eaten. So you can just be flexible with these, and just understand what is balanced meals. Eating food groups together, rice, roti, sabzi. I think Indian mixed meals are an excellent example. So what you eat, and definitely also how you live. So lifestyle is very important. Um, Try and maintain a balance, and it's okay one day if you have gone haywire and you can just focus on try and coming back to a routine. Definitely eat home cooked meals, because ordering outside, or rather ordering in from outside, or eating even food from outside, going out itself is a big risk with COVID. So either pick up a skill also, try and learn cooking. As hotel management students, it is an advantage for you. Probably experiment with new ingredients or recipe, whatever is available at home. So connect with your friends. If you're not able to meet them in person, call a family member, or definitely on a phone. So I think virtually the world has become so much closer today, and online was never a boom as what is this currently. So definitely spend some time outdoors, and if you are outdoor, please do wear a mask, or keep your hands, use a sanitizer, wash your hands. Exercise definitely goes without saying. Any form, in some way, you talking to a friend, just keep pacing up and down. So try and get movement, or your physical activity, what we call PAL. Just keep moving as much as possible in the day. Maintain a journal, or you can also pick up a hobby. Definitely sleep well, have the same schedule. Restrict screen time, which is quite easier said than done. It's like a black hole, it just sucks you in, but ensure that you try and refrain from indulgence with excessive screen time. So with this, I've ended my presentation. If anybody wants a last slide, you can reach me on my, this is my email. So I'm